Okay, Penny, so this is about the speed of law and the speed of change.
Yeah, it's just my take. And again, like with everything, I don't profess to be the expert of all things, but I just want to talk about the speed or the lack of speed of which change is happening in the current political system when something is afoot and something is concerning to a lot of people.
Right.
So we're going to be looking at the relationship and sexuality education guidelines, but the example that I want to bring up is actually to go off topic a little bit, is in 2022 when Bloomfield was the Director General of Health, and he made a decision as that position that 14 more councils around the country had to get fluoridation.
Let's have a look at that.
Yeah. So he just made a directive. So this is the Ministry of Health website.
He's got the ability to just say, I disagree with what these councils are doing at a local level, and you're just going to do it, guys. And then they did it.
And then by 2024 they were starting to have to. So there's 2 years really from when he said, stroke of the pen, I'm telling you that you have to do this. Even though there's a whole lot of, and I'm not for fluoridation, by the way. I'm just using this as an example of when something was able to happen quite quickly. Because the other time that I remember that something was able to happen quite quickly in New Zealand was under the Emergency Response Act with COVID. They were able to make a decision really quickly because there was a emergency, so-called. This fluoride thing, as one guy who's not even the Director General of Health anymore, they've had a bit of churn since then. But for some reason, we're all stuck and we can't seem to roll it back when it's not working. But the whole point really that I'm trying to say is he made a decision and then everybody had to comply or else. So it can obviously be done in New Zealand at some point. Okay.
So this sounds like fast-acting, law-sweeping change, as though we've got someone like Mr. Trump just signing executive orders.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I want to go with this, because I talk to people a lot around the sex ed and around all the things that people are worried about that look like they're going down the gurgler here and going, well, over there in America land, unless you're watching the mainstream media, Trump seems to be doing some quite good things. Surely that's going to make an impact on New Zealand. And I'm like, is it? I don't know. I mean, the impact that I think that it can make, if it's what you agree with, is get off your ass and go and get it going, go and have conversations, go and get involved in civics, go and get on your school boards, go and get in the councils with information at the ready. So fluoride is actually a great example of that. There are states in America that are getting rid of fluoride and things, and which are rolling things through now.
Yeah, that's just come out in the last month.
Yeah. Due to the fact that people are looking at the data. For some reason with fluoride, the government doesn't seem to be looking at the data. Now, Winston Peters recently proposed a bill about looking at the fluoride, but again, that's gonna get kicked down the road for a really long time. It doesn't mean it's going to happen straight away. It just means a bill's been put forward. It's got to now wait for that to come up.
Yeah, it's a bit of a sacred cow, that one. It's another one you're not allowed to question, and they're not willing to kill it.
Oh yeah, Sean Plunkett doesn't like questioning it either.
Oh, interesting.
So I'm just using the fluoride thing as an example of where there was a directive made, and I said you have to do this, and so country you have to do this, which is kind of what Trump's doing. Right, but now I want to look at what's going on with RSE.
All right, I'll put that on the screen.
Yeah, so that was what he was doing, was basically
example.
that 14 councils he just decided had to get it, and we're dealing with the fallout of that now, and it's taking a lot of people's time and energy.
Even though he's long since gone. Right.
So what I'm now going to show you is this goes back to a video that you and I did back a few months ago.
Several months back.
3 months ago. So this was a response to the ERO review, the Education Review Office review of the Relationship and Sexuality program in school.
Okay.
And it's just a little snippet of that where I actually raise that they said years before this happened that there was going to be a review. Then they talked about here, and this is important, this other article calls for sexual consent. In this article about calling for consent in education, there is a statement here. Remember, this was in April 2022. At that time, the Associate Education Minister, Jan Tinetti, says the curriculum is going through a refresh. And then in the second paragraph, it says, but it's happening in 2024.
Sorry, this is a thing put out in 2022 that they're going to do a refresh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's interesting, isn't it? Because you've got Winston Peters lobbying hard for it in 2023, but actually back in 2022 they were already saying that they were going to do this.
You're not saying that his promise, which he's signed off, ticked, done, was something that they were going to do anyway?
Someone knew that they were going to do it anyway. I don't know whether he knew because he wasn't in Parliament back then, but it feels a little bit contrived that they've thrown out some stuff that they knew was going to be controversial, and I think they're going to they're twisting the way that parents are responding it to base. And I'll show you as we go through of how they're going to control it even more rather than remove and replace, which is what Winston's asking for. Interesting, isn't it? So in 2022, the media already knew and the government already knew that in 2024 they were going to start a review on the relationship and sexuality education guidelines. And now the consultation documents come out, and it says in there that this is going to be not formalised and officially in schools until 2027.
So there's a delay now.
There's a big delay between them saying it back in the media with the and considering that we have a government system where you only have people in power for 3 years. So that's, that's 5 years. So that's over a couple of different layers of political stuff. And that's why I'm just, going back to the whole Bloomfield thing and going, well, he just made a decision and it got done. But for some reason, sex ed is so hard to consult on and decide what's right. And it's like, well, actually, because it should be, parents should be involved and the school shouldn't have to be making this massive deal about it.
Right.
Like, get onto the reading, writing and maths.
Yeah.
Yeah,
boy,
Let
is
us
this
just all
something
get on
that
with
is
it.
just absolutely tiny detail stuff that's blown out of proportion from what kids are at school for.
100%. This is the New Zealand First and National Party Coalition Agreement. Okay. And I'm just going to go down to page 8. So on page 8 of the Coalition Agreement is where they talk about education, delivering better public services. So the piece that refers to relationship and sexuality is bullet point number 3 there. Refocus the curriculum on academic achievement and not ideology, including the removal and replacement of the gender, sexuality and relationship-based education guidelines. So that's what we talk about all the time. So that was part of their coalition agreement. So it needs to be done within the time frame of this government, I would think. We're already halfway through and we're only just getting a consultation.
Well, they better crack to it, because if they are not in power at the end of this election, then nothing will be achieved.
Well, actually, thinking about that, if it says that it's not going to be implemented until 2027, well, there's an election in 2026. So it sort of feels like they've pushed it all back anyway, so that they're just dragging the chain on this when it doesn't need to be that hard. So that's again where instead of going down to the details, like really just motivating and encouraging parents to just remember that they don't have to wait for the lag of the school system to decide what is the right thing to teach kids and all of that, is actually just, get some thinking on yourself and take the reins here. So in comparison to how long it seems to take the New Zealand government to do things that the people are crying out for, what I actually want to go and look at is, before I do this actually, I'm just going to look at the current consultation document. So this is the consultation on draft relationships and sexuality education framework now open. So this is the thing that we're sort of grappling with at the moment. And you'll remember in a previous video I was talking about knowledge-rich curriculum and the science of learning words. So they come in right here at the start.
Right there again.
Yep. So that's why I'm just like, these words just keep coming up.
Code for lots of stuff.
Then even the wording around RSE is critical to the learning and development. Well, I don't know. I mean, who decides that it's critical? It's a small part. It should be a small part of the curriculum. Why is it critical? What's critical is our kids need to learn how to read and write, do maths, socialise, get along with each other, and stop dividing each other into micro-targeted groups.
Well, cynically, you might say critical if they're trying to really socially program your children.
Yeah. So, I would recommend looking at it and going through the documents. But anyway, what they talk about, and there you go, there at the top of the page, knowledge-rich curriculum grounded in the science of learning. See the same words popping up? It's concerning for me. So then it says, RSE content is age-appropriate, evidence-informed, internationally comparable, and clear about what to teach. So again, that's that whole, they want to be very prescriptive, but they think it's so important that they've got to go and talk to people outside of New Zealand about this. Like parents and experts here in New Zealand can't work out what's good sex ed for kids.
Which is interesting, because when people harp on about identity and where they're from, they give the impression that, looking local is where you want to put your focus. They give the idea that, who we are as a people and our identity is so important. And yet they've just said, there, go offshore, get someone else's opinion. I mean, which is it?
Yeah, exactly. And so then if I scroll down just a little bit more, it says, how have we developed the framework? So the framework that they're developing now, it says, has been developed by subject matter experts and quality assured. Well, I've put an OAA in asking who those experts are, because experts are in the eye of the beholder. If they're university experts and there's no parents involved in the consultation or people that are actually dealing with what's going on in the clinics and things, then I don't know. How do we know? Until we ask.
Yeah.
Anyway, it says that the draft framework has also been informed by how RSE is taught in other countries, including Australia, England, Canada, and Singapore. Now, I have an interview to put out of with a mum from Canada. So we're talking about the concerns, because Canada's really bad. I mean, I started looking at Canada a couple of years ago and saw that, so that's how I knew what was coming here. Australia's in a pickle. I'm about to interview a mum in Australia, so watch this space.
Yeah, they're both kind of woke cesspits, really.
Yeah. So all of the people that are looking at what Trump's doing, and we're going to look at that in a minute, they need to know that in the framework for RSE, America hasn't been noted as one of the countries that we're consulting with.
That's good, right? For America.
Well, no.
That clearly means they're doing something different.
Well, it's not good for us. I mean, I'm worried about our kids here, so it's not good for us.
Sorry, I'm with you. Yeah, okay, so if we're not consulting with an American sort of approach, then we are only getting the ones that are already ideologically captured to compare against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if Kamala and Biden were in, I'd be glad that we weren't consulting with America. And I'm not a Trump supporter or anything, by the way. I'm not being political here. But what I am going to show you, and we're going to read through Trump's executive order. Because people, I
haven't seen anyone do that before.
No, well, people have all these opinions about it because they're looking at what people are putting their own opinions on it in the media, and I just go back to the original document.
Yeah, so a lot of people are putting a spin on it, right? And depending on whether you're left or right leaning in your media, you're going to get vastly different spins.
Yeah, so I would highly recommend just search up the executive order and have a read and decide for yourself. So let's do that.
Okay.
So this is the White House's executive order on ending radical indoctrination in K-12, so that's in kindergarten to year 12.
Oh, in
Schooling.
K to 12.
K to 12,
right.
yeah. So basically from kindergarten to high school.
Right.
That's my understanding of it anyway. So this was on the 29th of January 2025. So I'm just going to read parts of it. Section 1. Parents trust America's schools to provide their children with the rigorous education and to instill a patriotic admiration for our incredible nation and the values for which we stand. In recent years, however, parents have witnessed schools indoctrinate their children in radical anti-American ideologies while deliberately blocking parental oversight. Such an environment operates as an echo chamber in which students are forced to accept these ideologies without question or critical examination. Sounding familiar?
Yeah.
In many cases, innocent children are compelled to adopt identities as either victims or oppressors solely based on their skin colour and other immutable characteristics. Sound familiar?
Mm-hmm.
In other instances, young men and women are made to question whether they are born in the wrong body and whether to view their parents and their reality as enemies to be blamed. These practices not only erode critical thinking, but also sow division, confusion, and distrust, which undermine the very foundations of personal identity and family unity. That sounds like exactly what's going on in the New Zealand system.
Yeah, they nailed it.
They nailed it. So there's no opinion here. They're just talking about what has happened, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So imprinting anti-American, subversive, harmful and false ideologies on our nation's children not only violates long-standing anti-discrimination civil rights laws in many cases, but usurps basic parental authority. Now, I've been talking about this for over a year. I've been using that language and that wasn't even being written.
Mm-hmm.
And I only read this, when it came out. But I talk about how the system that we have usurps parental authority. It is taking over the role of the parent, the state is, right? So he's talking my language.
Can you zoom in on it a bit more? Just get that a bit bigger for people at home who are reading on their screen.
Ooh.
Here we go.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's great.
For example, steering students towards, the second line there from the top, surgical and chemical mutilation without parental consent or involvement, or allowing males access to private spaces designated for females may contravene federal laws that protect parental rights including the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act and the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment Act, and sex-based equality and opportunity, including
Title 9.
Yeah, of the education amendments. Obviously, these laws are not applicable in New Zealand.
Mm.
Similarly, demanding acquiescence to white privilege or unconscious bias actually promotes racial discrimination and underlines national unity. I mean, if we had this here, boy, lots of people wouldn't get funding anymore.
No, they wouldn't.
My administration will enforce the law to ensure that recipients of federal funds providing K-12 education comply with all applicable laws prohibiting discrimination in various contexts and protecting parental rights, including Civil Rights Act of 1964 and a bunch of others. That's a really bold statement. It's the common sense that the parents have been saying for a long time, prior to Trump getting in, prior to him writing that in January. It's what we've been talking about for a year or more, a couple of years. I mean, I've only been talking about it for a couple of years. Some people have been talking about it for years. But the kids that are coming through the system now, the parents have been slapped in the face with it because they didn't know that it has actually been coming in for a long time. Everything in our system is discriminatory. It's
incredibly discriminatory. And they talk about being together and non-discriminatory, and yet it's this woke ideology is total hyper-focus on difference.
Yep.
And isn't that the opposite of what you want to achieve in a racist-free society? It's so ironic that they call people who question this racist when in fact it's the opposite. What they're doing is racist by sowing the seeds of division.
Do you know what's really concerning for me? The media in New Zealand won't even look at any of this stuff from Trump.
Well, you know, like you said, if they can't question it or look at it, we know what controls them.
Yeah. So the fact that most people in New Zealand wouldn't even know that that executive order exists because they're never going to hear about it in the mainstream media.
No, you'd have to see it on YouTube or something.
But you know, people can love or hate him when you see him on stage talking about stuff or whatever you want to believe. That stuff is manipulated by the media to make you think a certain way. And all you've got to do, love him or hate him, go and read the executive orders.
Yeah, well, credit where it's due, right? That's a pretty good one.
He's just stating fact there, and he's saying stated the facts. He's now going to tie this to the reduction of federal funding if you don't comply. Job done. You know, it's a little bit like what Bloomfield did, but on the other side. He was able to put something out there, and the federal laws in all of the states have to comply with that now.
Right.
So why can't we have something as bold as that to get this gone? And if we can't, who's running the show? Right?
Yeah, good question.
So I'm just going to show a video from someone called Billboard Chris, and if you're on X, you'll know Billboard Chris. This is Chris Elston, and he's Canadian, and what he does is he goes around the world with a billboard on his back, and he wears a suit and he looks very professional, and he wears billboards that say things like children can't consent to puberty blockers, no child is born in the wrong body.
Wow.
And he now has a cameraman that goes with him everywhere, and unfortunately the videos that get the most follows and looks at are the ones where people are abusing him, because he gets quite a lot of abuse, and all he's doing is standing there saying kids can't consent to puberty blockers.
Wow, that's really brave.
Really brave.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I got to meet him last year when I went to a conference that he was at, and he was speaking, and he's just great. This is a short video of him speaking at the United Nations in Geneva. Listen to what he has to say.
Thank you. I now give the floor to Alliance Defending Freedom.
My name is Chris Elston, and I'm here to speak for children being irreversibly harmed by health professionals practicing what is falsely referred to as gender-affirming care. It is not caring to stop the development of children with puberty blockers. These are repurposed chemical castration and cancer drugs. It is not caring to alter their development with opposite-sex hormones. Every systematic review of the scientific literature shows that children are being harmed and that scientific rigor is non-existent. Activist organizations pushing ideology have hijacked the medical community, and what is being done is nothing more than a live, unregulated experiment on kids. It is one of the great deceptions of our time to teach children that they might have been born in the wrong bodies. Affirming care would be to tell them that they are beautiful just as they are, no drugs or scalpels needed. Instead, children are being sterilized and are having healthy body parts cut off. Overwhelmingly, these kids are autistic, have other mental health comorbidities, and many have suffered trauma or abuse. Girls as young as 12 are having their breasts removed, and 16-year-old boys are being castrated. State encroachment on parental rights is worsening outcomes. Here in Geneva, a child was taken from her parents because they refused to transition her. Children have the human right to grow up with their bodies intact. It is time the member states of the United Nations use the resolutions, procedures, and other tools at their disposal to stop this child abuse.
Wow.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, he's great.
Isn't he great? We need more courageous voices. We need more dads. We definitely need more dads. We need to use the correct language. So I use the words that he uses: mutilation, castration, sterilisation. That is what is happening to our children when they become ideologically captured.
Yeah.
You know, we've done recent videos.
Castration drugs for criminals.
Yeah.
That's what some of those are, those quote-unquote puberty blockers.
The mutilation of children that we know happens in places like African nations and things like that. We never thought that it would happen on our own doorstep, and yet it is. Girls are getting their healthy breasts removed. Boys are getting their penises taken off. And it is happening here in New Zealand. And it doesn't happen because they wake up in the morning and think, this is a brilliant idea. It happens because they come across information from adults that they would look up to and take literally. You know, and hear information, they would see it. It's not just happening in schools, it's very much happening online. You know, we're in a pickle, and I wanted to show that because I'm hoping that what I can do is reach people that may never have heard of Billboard, Chris. Unless you're looking in this direction, you don't know that this stuff is going on.
Right.
And my hope is to try and bring it to people in a way that actually gets them motivated to go and look more for themselves, for their own children, for their own grandchildren, and don't allow. I had a guy ring me this week, and he said, I can't even talk about this with my kids, and everyone's just like, don't talk about that. But people, even if they know that things are wrong, they think that the best way through it is to put their head in the sand. And actually, history would tell you that that's the wrong thing to do.
Yeah, just remember, what you can't talk about is what controls you.
Yeah.
And it's time we wise up to that and ask ourselves, do we want to be controlled by this at all?
And if you think that this stuff's crazy and that would never happen to you, I can introduce you to some people for whom said that and it happened to them.
Yeah.
Don't wait until it's too late. Look at what's going on if you've got kids in school or about to go into school. It's not pretty what you're looking at, but know that there are really good people around. Like, let kids be kids. We're building a nationwide network. We've got amazing people. They keep me going. I know I'm not crazy, because when you look at this stuff, you can think you're crazy, you're in this weird dystopia, you know, and then you get a phone call from someone who's going through it and you're like, I've got to keep going because I don't want this to keep happening. And if we have leaders in the country that are trying to pretend that this stuff is okay, and we have political parties that are pushing this in through their policies, go and read the Green Party policy if you want to go and shock yourself about this. They want to install a rainbow minister.
Wow.
You know, and we've talked about that on a previous video. So parents need to look at what's going on. Stop looking for the government and waiting for them to put another policy in that's going to change things or do something. You've actually got to look after your own children now, because as we're showing, this RSE consultation seems to be like a 5-year process. I jumped on News Talk ZB the other day, and you can go and listen to my previous video about it. And I just was chatting on there, talk back for a couple of minutes. When I jumped off the call, the next person that was a 19-year-old boy called Rohan, and he said, and I haven't got the recording, I don't know if you could find it online.
So this Rohan kid called into News Talk right after you got off.
Right after me, he was the next one, and he said, I didn't catch your name, but she's on the money. And he said, I had that stuff pushed on me from when I was 8 years old in school.
Wow.
And it did me harm, and I know, and my other friends went through it too. He said, we don't need to know this stuff. It's too much. We don't need to know anything at 8 years old about this stuff, and we definitely don't need to know all the ideological stuff. Now, he's only 19.
Yeah, and like a lot of 8-year-olds, boy or girl, he's probably sensitive, receptive, open, not sort of sure how to say no to things because he's just a good kid, and it gets shoved on him.
Well, and they take things literally at that age. I mean, you talk to people who know about children's brain development, and they take it literally. If, you know, we hear these stories that kids will get up in the morning and say to their mum, am I a boy or a girl? And they're like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, I was told that I could be not who I think that I am, and so maybe I am wrong. So, you know, it's quite easy to get kids questioning themselves, particularly kids with, if they're on the spectrum and things like that, which is their main target. Kids who are sort of struggling to understand some things anyway. It's horrific what's going on. So please, parents, read through the consultation that's out for the RSE at the moment. Please read it through. You are able to send a submission in and have your say, only until I think it's the 7th of May that it shuts. But please do some research before that. And meanwhile, my advice is get closer to your kids, keep asking them what's going on, and please contact your school directly. And not all schools are doing this. Some schools have managed to keep it out, find out how that was. You know, you've got the Labour Party and Greens really strongly campaigning to get rid of charter schools, which to me means that they want to prescriptively dictate everything that's being taught in school. And woe betide, they don't want to have schools that are doing their own thing. The schools that are able to do their own things, such as Christian schools who are not fully state schools, they have large waiting lists, because parents can take their kids there and have less or no ideological capture. Why are we not looking at these numbers? So parents just need to get moving and get connected. Yeah. And please contact and reach out and follow Let Kids Be Kids if you want to be a part of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe, get in touch, and comment below on how it's affecting your family.
Yep. And also Penny Marie NZ on YouTube as well.